this is my review of Assassination Classroom. Okay, so in this episode, the class, now having a plan to actually try and save Koro Sensei, just proceed to prepare to go into space, basically. So yeah, their entire plan is that they need to actually sneak into the government controlled facility, controlled by the Japanese, and basically steal the unmanned spacecraft so that they can actually get two of their own into the ISS and basically steal copy the data so that they can find out how to save Koro Sensei. What is their name? And while everybody's kind of concerned as to whether or not the Japanese would be able to actually have the technology to go into space, much less be able to own an unarmed aircraft. Koro Sensei quickly points out that he may have indeed had something to do with that, implying that because of him, they've actually been researching going to space so that they can find a way to actually keep up with him. At which point, Isekai then walks up to the front of the class and asks everybody who's going, and surprising nobody, all of the guys immediately raise their hand and all volunteer to go. However, and while Isekai and by extension everybody else isn't really surprised that all the guys want to go to space, Koro Sensei then reframes the question, pointing out that it's actually a very experimental aircraft that has never been tested before, and wonders if everybody still wants to go. And obviously, nearly everybody puts down their hand. The only exception, of course, being Itana, who is fascinated by technology, as we've established, and the idea of being in a technologically advanced aircraft makes him all sorts of happy. And he points out that it should ultimately be Karma and Nagisa who should go, pointing out that there was kind of their idea to go into space anyway, and that it was ultimately because of their huge fight and how they put their life on the line that they should go. Karma, of course, is kind of against it because he's a little bit scared of risking his own life, and then points out that Terasuga and Adami should go because they're expendable, which annoys Terasuga. But everybody again points out that they basically fought to make sure their opinions were heard. And Terasuga even points that that since they put their lives on the line, that Karma shouldn't really be the one to weasel out of it. And Karma is still understandably on the fence, but Nagisa then reassures him that he wants them there as his friends, since Karma did agree to hear him out, and with that they actually settled. So with that, they then proceed to prepare to go into space, and the team that's actually tasked with actually breaking in is Karma and Nagisa, obviously. But then there's also Ritsu, who is going to be there and actually help them through everything. Masayoshi Kimura, who is there to actually make sure that Ritsu can actually take over everything and make sure that everything goes off without a hitch. And then Hinano, Kurahashi, and Tokiyata, who are there to be a distraction. So long story short, the plan for Karma and Nagisa to slip into the space shuttle is as follows. So all five of them are vaulted over the fence into the facility by the rest of the class. And Kimura, Yada, and Kurahashi actually proceed to go to the control room, with Kurahashi and Yada actually changing clothes to make it look like they're actually some lost kids who wound up there on a field trip. And it works. They sneak it. They walk straight into the main office where they're doing the countdown. Pretend to be two lost girls who got lost on a field trip. And all the NASA technicians, or whatever their equivalent is, but while all the countdown technicians are busy dealing with them and trying to figure out who they are and why they're there, Kimura actually slips in through a door in the back, and actually slots on an SD card that has a USB drive, but still. Point is, he sticks a thing in a computer that that enables Ritsu to actually have control over the facility, so that she can actually help Karma and Nagisa break in. And she proceeds to do exactly that. She not only does she have access to all the patrol routes, but she also can control all the security cameras so that everybody knows what's going on, and so that they can actually monitor them from space. So Nagisa and Karma sneak in through a tunnel, but quickly realize there's a big spot of open air where they're supposed to go through, and so they ask Ritsu to shut off the camera monitoring it, and she does. At which point they proceed to continue through the tunnel until they eventually come to the launch site. And after waiting for one of the guards to go by, they climb out of the maintenance grate where they were hiding, and then proceed to climb up the stairs through the elevator and into the main cockpit, with Ritsu having disabled the camera so that nobody can actually see that the dummies are not in there where they're supposed to be. Or at the very least, she played an infinite loop video so that it looks like the dummies are in there when they're not. And also because he wants to see his students off before they go into space. Course Sensei is just there with his stealth getup, and helps them get rid of the dummies so that they can actually slip in. At which point the countdown proceeds to go into launch as all of the students watch from a nearby field, or at least all the ones that didn't infiltrate. But in any case, as it begins to count down, Karma and Nagisa begin to worry about what's going to happen to them, pointing out that this is the first time they've ever gone to space, and they know that this is probably one of the scarier things they've done. But Nagisa is quick to point out that they've done this before with Koro Sensei, but obviously Karma points out that they've matured a lot since that day. So obviously there's some very, very obvious differences between what they're doing and what they did then. But after a while, the spaceship actually takes off, and as they're taking off and getting ready to go to the ISS, Koro Sensei actually clings onto the side of the space shuttle craft, and then proceeds to basically talk to them through the wall using a special nose cone so they can actually hear everything. And obviously Nagisa and Karma are a little bit concerned that he's going to get burned up in the atmosphere, pointing out that he shouldn't be there because he could get hurt. Only for Koro Sensei to point out that he's kind of a bit of a worrywart and that's kind of his job. So obviously he's going to tug on to make sure that they're safe at least as long as he can. At which point Nagisa proceeds to point out that and subsequently thank Koro Sensei for all the hard work he does, pointing out that Koro Sensei often puts his life on the line to actually teach them a lesson, and admires him and greatly admires him for that. And then with that, they proceed to go to escape the atmosphere, with Koro Sensei being unable to keep up because the space shuttle they're on actually travels at Mach 23, whereas Koro Sensei caps out at Mach 20. So he's kind of just left behind, and pointing out that they're too fast for him to keep up. But as they proceed to go on board the ISS, they proceed to go into the docking sequence. And of course, all the astronauts on aboard the ISS are a little bit are kind of completely oblivious to what exactly is going on and don't know that there's actually students on board. So when Karma, Nagisa, and Ritsu, who tagged along via a phone, actually realize are on the board and proceed to take one of the crewmates hostage, they're obviously thrown for a loop. But in any case, speaking of which, Karma, Nagisa, and Ritsu take an astronaut hostage, with Ritsu even disabling communication so that they can't call for help, basically. And Nagisa also remarks that they have a bomb, which I'll get to in a minute. But they have their knives and they have a bomb, and they declare that all they really want is the data on Koro Sensei from the American branch, and that once they've gotten what they want, they'll go home. However, the astronauts are quick to point out that they're astronauts. They kind of decide to become astronauts because they know that there's a lot of risk involved, and that they're obviously putting their life on the line every day they do it. So for that reason, they're not really scared of Nagisa or his bomb, and point out that if they let their crewmate go, they'll be more than happy to give them the data, which Nagisa and Karma ultimately agreed to and let the guy go. At which point they proceed to the astronauts point out that if Karma and Nagisa actually want the data, they're going to have to work for it, and then proceed to put them to work to get to organizing some of their cargo in the cargo bay so that they can actually keep everything nice and organized. And while it is kind of pointed out as them giving them hard work, in actuality, Nagisa figures they're just trying to show two junior high kids the experience of a lifetime. At which point, Nagisa and Karma look out the window at their Earth, and point out that and Karma points out that once they have what they need to actually save Koro Sensei, if that'll be enough for Nagisa to back down. At which point Nagisa is a little bit confused as to why Karma said that, but Karma then reiterates that he's not going against the decision of the class and knows that regardless of what they're going to do, that they're ultimately going to try and save Koro Sensei. But then he proceeds to wonder if that's what Koro Sensei himself would want. But with that, they then proceed to get the data and realize that they may actually be able to save Koro Sensei with it. At which point they thank the astronauts for their time and proceed to get back on their unmanned space shuttle. And the astronauts hope that they'll be able to return to space legally one day. Karma is quick to point out that while he probably will never be returning to space because he's kind of an Earth and more of a solid Earth type person, he does point out that when he's eventually in power, he will give them a large budget increase, and the astronauts do ultimately hold them to that. And then one of the astronauts even remarks that it's such a very strange experience overall because they point out that they just stole government data like they were exchanging video games and are now leaving from outer space like it's some sort of visit with their friends. And the lead astronaut actually remarks that things sure have changed since they were in junior high school. And that obviously they've gotten a lot braver. But in any case, they then proceed to get into the shuttle and Ritsu proceeds to charge course home. At which point Ritsu finally remarks that she has access to so much data that she's been able to expand her mind a little bit, pointing out that for all intents and purposes the shuttle is her physical body, and that she can use this data to actually kind of see the outside world, monitor everybody's heart rate and stuff, and long story short, do a bunch of other sciencey stuff while also charting a more efficient course back to Earth. And she remarks that not only that for the first time she's actually started feeling emotion. Doing this and actually being part of the class has made her happy. So yeah, for the first time so it's her first ever real emotion. Obviously she's just kind of a robot, kind of a beep boop, but here she actually genuinely expresses joy. She's happy she got to be part of the class because it meant she got to experience something like this. So yeah, she's happy because of that. She's been able to expand her mind and also finally experience what kind of the real world it is. And through the space shuttle, might I add. But in any case, they proceed to return to orbit with Koro Sensei can't wait to jump onto the actual shuttle, to the actual landing craft itself. And he does kind of get burned, and Nagisa does show some concern that Koro Sensei has gotten hurt. But once the shuttle's parachutes deploy, Koro Sensei then proceeds to cling onto the side again, and remarks that they really risked their lives today, but he's proud that they're back in one piece, and then proceeds to chart a course home, basically giving them a gentle nudge in the direction of their campus, which he isn't very good at because, as we've remarked, his punches are kind of soft, but he does his best anyway, and it's kind of funny. So he just kind of punches the shuttle to push it in the direction of their classroom, and it eventually collapses in the hot spring that he made for them. With Karasuma and Irina being a little bit miffed about the fact that Koro Sensei basically stole a space shuttle and they had no idea what was going on, and Karasuma is obviously the most upset because he's the government guy. He's the government official that's been assigned to watch over the mission. So when Koro Sensei shows up with a giant government-owned landing craft and without any explanation, he's obviously pretty pissed. So, but Koro Sensei, Koro Sensei understands perfectly that Karasuma is pissed, because not only does he try to backtrack on it, pointing out that that this is the exact reason why he kept Irina and Karasuma in the dark, pointing out that now they had deniable plausibility because they had no idea that any of this was happening. In addition to that, he then gives them all the data that Ritsu had calculated on her during her return trip as a consolation prize, to basically as a way to make sure that even if they're a little bit annoyed about the fact that he landed a spacecraft and basically stole a spacecraft, that no, actually not basically. He did steal a spacecraft, but he hopes that will actually pave over the little friction between them at the moment. Pointing out and states that in good faith that they will use this to actually improve the Japanese space program, since as Core Sensei puts it, it'll put them ahead by 10 years. But now that Nagisa and Karma are home, they then proceed to pour through the data with Ritsu's help. And Ritsu actually displays all the data on her screen, and while none of the students are able to actually read it at first, Okuda actually remarks that she can actually read it, since she's kind of the scientist of the group. And after skimming through the data, she eventually gives them puts it in layman's terms so everybody in the class can understand what's going on. Basically, long story short, of course, the chance of an antimatter organism with tentacles actually blowing up is inversely proportional to their size. What that means is that the rat that obviously blew up during Tora Sensei's backstory, obviously that's going to blow up and cause a very big explosion, but Core Sensei is less likely to do so because he's a human. He's big. He's chunky. He's less likely to blow up because he's a lot bigger than a rat. And also Okuda also points out that a specific compound they use can actually further delay on Core Sensei's explosion by stimulating muscle relaxation in his body, which will enable them to actually keep him from blowing up, because there's a lot less tension, which means his chance of it blowing up will actually go down. And when the rest of the class ask if they're able to actually, make this compound and actually save Core Sensei, Okuda remarks that more or less she already did. So yeah, you remember Okuda's episode where she makes a bunch of potions from Core Sensei to drink so that he can turn into various forms and try and quote unquote poison him. Yeah, as it turns out, that episode actually served a double purpose, because as it turns out, she unwittingly made the compound that would save his life. And because of his slime, now his acquired slime form, he now has a much less likely chance of blowing up. And the end result is that his chances of blowing up overall are now 1%. And the entire class cheers because they realize that it's basically zero, so that they can no longer have to kill him because he's no longer going to blow up. And even then, they can save the Earth without blowing him up, which is why they're excited. But Isekai is quick to point out that that's clear that is if they're going to call off the Assassination project, since they've been working on it basically the whole school year. So, and he's quick to point out that that's actually what they decided. And well, it seems like everybody did. They ultimately leave it to Nagisa, since it was Nagisa's idea. And Nagisa basically puts it like this: that obviously he wants to be fair to everybody else and not try and force his ideals upon everybody else. So he kind of offers a solution, pointing out that Core Sensei and the relationship with him has been built on assassination and forms bonds not between target and assassin, but between friends and loved ones. So for that reason, he points out that they're actually going to continue the assassination project until the March deadline, at which point they'll stop being assassins and carry out a more long-term meaningful student-teacher relationship. And that's actually a pretty satisfying ending to go on, because while they're going to continue to try and assassinate Core Sensei, they're no longer obligated to. They're just doing it because that's the kind of path they decided to set for themselves. They don't have to kill Core Sensei. They're doing it. They're not even planning to succeed. They're just doing that because that's the kind of relationship they have in the class. So yeah, long story short, this episode showcases that Core Sensei is not going to blow up, despite what has been built up over the past however many 40 episodes or so at this point. And now the class, realizing that Core Sensei is no longer going to blow up, realize that now they're just going to try and assassinate him for the funsies. They're not necessarily going to succeed, mind you, but now they know that since Core Sensei isn't going to blow up, that they no longer have an obligation to actually kill him. So now they're just doing it because they want to, not because they have to, which is a much more fun take for the series to go on, because now the students are just kind of doing it for fun, not necessarily because it's their obligation to the planet, which is just kind of a sweet note to end on. But Well, I guess sweet isn't the right word, but in any case, that's my review of Assassination Classroom. What did you guys think? Let's get discussing them in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below, because I keep up to date with what's going on with the channel. I also like and retweet art over there. I also kind of post my thoughts about stuff that are going on in the world over there, so be sure to check that out. And also be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that I'm always saying thanks. I will basically, it's an if you support me, I'll support you kind of thing, so go check that out. If you do support me, I will list you on my website, and also maybe do a shout out depending on the tier that you actually pledge to me, but and actually decide to support me with, but I will also post written reviews over there. I'm kind of working on expanding some of those because I only have the one up there, but I am working on writing written reviews because sometimes I don't have time to cover every single game that comes into my knowledge. So yeah, that's why I decided to write written reviews, because sometimes I don't have time to cover a game as a let's play. So for that reason, you should go check that out, because sometimes I can't turn everything into a let's play, and that's a great way for me to actually kind of offset that. And also, be sure to check out my Twitch as well. I recently streamed Utopia a couple of days ago, and we're probably going to do so again this coming week. Unless there's like a big major holiday, I'll probably stream again. But long story short, I've been streaming Utopia for the past couple of weeks. We actually beat the first world of the game, so if you guys want to go see that, then be sure to check that out. It'll only be up for like 2 weeks, because that's how Twitch's archive works. I also upload the VOD here so that it never gets lost, but yeah, be sure to go check that out over on Twitch or over here. And also, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is the video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So, if you want to see more of what you like, or try something completely different, then be sure to check both of those videos out. But, regardless of whether or not you do any or all of those things, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!